Hi, everyone. I'm Colleen, and this is Robyn with the Reiki Lifestyle Podcast. And we are so excited today to have Christian here with us as our guest. So let's say hi to you, Christian.
Thank you so much. I'm honored and grateful to be here.
We're glad you're here too. And his last name is Reifsteck. And so we're going to also mention that his website is standingstoneshealing.com because that may be easier for people to remember as he was sharing with us. So anyway, welcome, Christian. I'm going to go ahead and just talk a little bit about what we have going on and then read your bio, and then we'll get into it. So again, this is Reiki Lifestyle. You can find our classes and information on ReikiLifestyle.com. In September, we have some upcoming classes with Reiki 1 and 2 and Reiki Master classes. And then I'm actually heading to Egypt for just a personal trip with my husband. Super excited about that. And we have classes coming up then in October, Karuna Reiki, and Robyn, you probably know when the animal Reiki classes are.
I had to look it up.
I know.
It's at the end of October. We have Animal Reiki Master and Animal Reiki 1 and 2. And in October, we have Animal Reiki 1 and 2 is on a Saturday, Sunday. I know we had a few people email us and let us know that they needed the 1 and 2 on a weekend. So the 1 and 2 in October is on a weekend. And they're all online.
Oh, good.
Oh, did I not say the actual dates? So Karuna Masters, October 20th through the 22nd. Animal Reiki Masters, the 25th. This is all October 25th through the 27th. And then the 1 and 2 is the 28th and the 29th October.
Great. And then I'm really excited to also mention quickly just that William Rand and I are teaching a Karuna Reiki Masterclass together, a 7-day class in Hana, Hawaii. And so we do the class material, and then we also do a lot of hiking, visiting the beaches and waterfalls, and it's really a wonderful time. So anyway, I want to get to you, Christian. So I'm going to just read your bio and then ask you to share your story with us and hear about you and where you are and what got you here. So if not for Reiki, Christian would today be the world's foremost expert on dismemberment in medieval poetry.
I
so
have to
definitely need to know about
that. We got to hear about that one.
Yes. He has a background in teaching, writing, and literature and career coaching. But thanks to Reiki, he instead owns and operates Standing Stones Healing, offering Reiki, card reading, coaching, and courses with a specialization in helping people create and navigate career and business changes. He's been a card reader and coach since 2012 and a Usui Reiki practitioner since 2014. He created the 7-way path of 7 transformative practices, founded the Reiki Business Collective, and hosts the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. And you can tune in each week at standingstoneshealing.com/podcast. You can find him at standingstoneshealing.com, and really even all of his social media is under Standing Stones Healing. So Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. So today we're going to talk with Christian about navigating changes and transitions, including the life change of starting a Reiki business. So just again, welcome and really excited about your topic. So why don't we start with your story and what brought you here today?
And you have to include a little background on that medieval poetry.
Yes, absolutely.
Of the life.
Well, thank you both so much. I am so excited to be here. So I just want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to everyone listening in as well. It is an honor to have you. So thanks so much. So, like everyone, my Reiki story is long and winding. And I will indeed, Robyn, take you back to the dismemberment part, where I was a graduate student, and my focus was indeed on dismemberment in medieval poetry, actually a very specific kind of medieval poetry. And so my life trajectory was to study medieval poetry, specifically dismemberment, become a college professor in an English department, teaching with a specialization, writing, reading, all about dismemberment in medieval poetry. Fortunately, Reiki had other plans, because what happened to me, this was back in 2007, 2008. What happened to me was that I started to become very ill, very sick in the stomach. I was sick all of the time. I could hardly eat, and I did not feel well. At that time, I attributed my sickness to my graduate studies, which were very rigorous. I realize now that actually it was the abusive relationship that I was in and not graduate school. But of course, Reiki was there to intervene and to help me get into alignment. After I graduated from graduate school, I went into grant writing, and I was in a toxic work environment as that grant writer. It was terrible. Now, this was indeed the kind of place where I was still very sick to go to work every day, and very just anxious about that toxic work environment. And of course, at the same time, I was still in that very toxic, abusive relationship. Now, fortunately, Reiki really intervened. I was very much off course in my life at that time. I was disconnected. I was not tapping into my own spiritual sense of self, which I really always had. I'd always identified as a very spiritual person, but I was really out of alignment. And thankfully, Reiki definitely brought me back into alignment, and did so all at once. And when I say all at once, I mean in the span of 1 month. So in the span of 1 month, I was fired from that toxic job, thankfully. I finally broke free from the abusive relationship. And just a little bit after that, like a few weeks later, my best friendship of more than 12 years was crumbling. And so thank you, Reiki, for bringing everything to a real point for me where I hit an emotional wall. My life was crumbling around me, and I had no idea what I was going to do to pick up the pieces. Now, you're thinking, now this is the point where Reiki comes in, and you see a Reiki practitioner and you receive Reiki, and then that's it. You're a Reiki practitioner after that. But that's not when Reiki came in.
That's an intense month, by the way.
What's that, Robyn?
Intense month.
It was an intense month.
That's sure. A dark night of the soul month.
It was. And I'll tell you what, it literally left me lying on the floor in a puddle of tears. Like I just did not know how to move forward, which way to turn. And it really just shook my whole life at its core. Everything had just come tumbling down. But at this time, what I did was I actually picked myself back up very slowly and really started to reconnect with my own spiritual sense of self. And I did that through 7 transformative practices that I now call the 7-way path. And so that is where the 7-way path was born. But I know absolutely 1000% that Reiki led me to that breaking point to bring me back into alignment, to then bring me to Reiki. And so it was then, after a few years of living my life in greater alignment, practicing the 7-way path, and really reconnecting with myself and building my life back, is when Reiki came in. And that was in 2014. And at that time, I was teaching at a community college, and I had been card reading for a couple of years. So I got into card reading and was reading for myself for a couple of years. And that was part of my spiritual journey. And at the community college, I had taken some classes, some workshops, card reading, and other spiritual kinds of classes. And one of my coworkers said to me, "Hey, Christian, do you know that we're teaching a Reiki course?" And I said, "No, I didn't. Now, I'm positive that my colleague thought that I knew what Reiki was, but I did not know what Reiki was. I had no idea what it was. I'd heard of it before, but I didn't know what it was." So I went and I read the course description, and I said, definitely, I'm going to take this Reiki thing because it really resonated with me. And I'll tell you what, it absolutely resonated with me. And that was a point where, I had done the training for my own personal and spiritual development. And I just found a whole new level with Reiki, as many of us do. Things like the precepts, the energy, and just everything. I found a whole new level to my spirituality. And so that's where Reiki came in for me. Now, interestingly enough, during my trainings, my teachers talked about, this is, when you start a Reiki business, if you start a Reiki business, this is what you'll want to think about and consider. And in the back of my head, I listened and paid attention, but I was like, yeah, I'm never going to need this, because the Reiki classes, the training was all about my personal and spiritual development. It was never about Reiki business stuff. But, as Reiki works on us, a couple of years later, I had a friend who, and I had been using Reiki on myself, my garden, my home. But I had a friend who called me up, and she had been going through a major life change. She had lost her job and had a lot going on. And it was like a light bulb. Colleen and Robyn, you probably know what I mean. It was like a Reiki light bulb, where it's like Reiki is going to help you. And so we had a Reiki session over the phone. And of course, boom, Reiki helped her. And then the rest is history. And it was the kind of thing where I didn't even have a doubt. As soon as she told me what was going on in her life, I knew Reiki was going to help her. And it wasn't even a question. And Reiki indeed did help her. And so that is really how we got to where we are now.
Well, I have two questions. One is, what is meant, because dismemberment in my training, in shamanic training, may have a very different meaning than dismemberment in medieval poetry. Yes. And then you talked about the seven steps of the path. And can you kind of outline what those are too? So, but I'm so curious about the dismemberment.
Well, and also, did you say that the Reiki was offered as a college course, or
it was?
You knew. Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. Right. Yes. So the dismemberment in the medieval poetry, how I got into it was I had studied medieval poetry before, was very interested in it. I had studied it as an undergraduate student, and I knew that I wanted to continue those studies in graduate school. And as I was reading all of these medieval poems, there were a lot of instances of physical dismemberment. And so I was like, why all this physical dismemberment? What is up with that? And I was really curious about that and wanted to explore that. And so it was this idea of physical dismemberment that really led into a realization that the dismemberment was happening on a much greater level. So it wasn't only physical, it was also figurative. So in terms of like the hero's dismemberment from the homeland, which of course is a big part of the hero's journey story, and how, those kind of really went together, and how dismemberment physically was an ever-present threat as the hero was dismembered from their homeland.
So let me just ask you if you mean what I think you mean, like they're dismembered, their body parts are cut off. Okay. So the cut and quartered and all of that. Okay.
Yes. Yep. Right. Exactly.
Now I
get it. Body parts and everything. It's very common.
So many of all our past life memories, right?
Yes, it's very strange, to be reading these poems. And then it's like, what is this obsession with dismemberment, physical dismemberment? Right. Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
And it's multi-layered. There's a lot more to it than that. But, it is actually really fascinating that I had that interest in this idea of dismemberment. And now, yes, of course, an interest in shamanism and all of that and the importance of dismemberment there. And so it's so interesting, I think, to look back on our lives and recognize the threads, the common threads that are really woven throughout, and to see that, that medieval dismemberment, it still shows up.
Yeah, right. On an energetic level.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So thanks for that, Colleen.
Great. Okay.
And then as far as the 7-way path. So the 7-way path is 7 profound, powerful, transformative practices that I really used to put my life back together, to remember my life, and to really remember myself. And those practices are, number 1, gratitude. And I really believe that gratitude is just so incredibly powerful for helping us to improve our lives, to reconnect, and to move forward in our lives. So I think that gratitude is oftentimes underestimated in terms of its sheer power. So gratitude, cleaning and clearing. So decluttering energetically and physically and cleaning our spaces is powerful for clearing energy and bringing new energy in. Number 3 is nature. And I truly believe that nature is the greatest healer. And so as we spend time in nature and connect with nature, really and truly, we have a greater ability to be healed. So thank you, Mother Earth, for all of your gifts. Number 4 is walking, because I do believe that walking is powerful as well for helping us to process our experiences. Now, during this time, I did a lot of walking, and I had walked a lot in the past, but this again was one of those practices that I had done, but I wasn't doing so much of during my period of being out of alignment. And so at that time, I brought myself back with all of these practices, including walking every single day. And studies have shown that the bilateral movement of walking really helps in the processing of our emotions. Number 5 is journaling. And I am a big proponent of journaling as well, and its ability to help us heal, to help us process emotions, to help us create our vision on the page, and to help us to really literally write whatever kind of life we might want for ourselves. Number 6 is ritual. And I'm a big believer in the power of ritual. We know that ritual changes the brain and has a powerful impact on the brain. And so setting and creating rituals can really help us with bringing in the new energy, with moving forward in our lives, and with creating change in our own lives. And so for me, during that time, one of the rituals that I conducted was I burned my shirt from that toxic job. And that was a powerful ritual that really helped me to set a signal, a message that I'm done and moving on with this and moving forward with my life. And then number 7 is silence, whether that's in the form of meditation, being quiet, reflection, the power of silence. And I really like meditation as a essential component of that silence, but to really help us to unplug and disconnect from the world in order to reconnect with ourselves.
Well, those are really powerful ways to do things. So, one of the things, because I would say I had about a 2-year process of really just like a hard, I would say spiritual, mental, emotional, all put together time frame. And I had been, it started by studying my own judgment and judgments. And that led me, and this is over the couple-year process, and using Reiki journeys and, like you say, journaling, automatic writing, that kind of thing. And so I had gone from how to understand how to heal my judgment or judgmental self, and without giving up good judgment, which is still necessary. And so studying that, and it led me to study my opinions and whether my opinions were healthy, unhealthy, whether they were my own. And in the course of that study, as we know, sometimes when you're focused in areas, it was like, oh my gosh, just blasted with judgment and opinions, both my own and those directed at me, those around me. I mean, it was just overwhelming. And one day I was in a deep meditation and I was like, help, Reiki, help, spirit guides, help, and asking for what could heal this, because it was just, once I recognized how many opinions I had, I realized I wake up with them. Look in the mirror and have an opinion. All the shoulds are opinions. So many, they were just overwhelming. And so I was really asking deeply in this meditation and Reiki journey. And it was a download with gratitude and ritual. Both of those, and the writing, the journaling, because it was coming in so quickly that it was downloading both visually and the words, everything. And so what I was shown with the Reiki energy was that gratitude is what fixes it all. That gratitude, when you're in a state of gratitude, you can't be in judgment, and your opinions are in the healthy view of what's authentic about what do I need to be thinking about, not just the random opinions that are blasting my mind. And so it showed me how gratitude, and then it showed me that Reiki itself will empower our gratitude when we can't find it for ourselves. Like the energy of it will actually go within and show us where it is and help us return to it. And then it showed me the ritual of a gratitude ceremony and the prayers that go with it. And we've been practicing that ceremony at the Reiki retreats. We do it online. We do it for our own family gatherings. I do it on a personal level. And it's just a matter of taking the time to go into gratitude and using this prayer that going to nature talks about, saying thank you to everything from the earth to the waters, all the life in the waters, the plants, the animals, the trees, the birds, the winds, the thunderers, the moon and the sun and the stars, creator, and going in this whole long thing of in this depth of gratitude. So I really love your 7 steps because each one of them really makes a difference. And so I think part of it that I wonder about too is your how to. So I think you have an actual program that you do, like how to, when somebody hears gratitude and you're like, I'm not feeling it.
Yeah.
When you're a puddle on the floor.
In that dark night of the soul. It's funny because I had this whole thing of gratitude come in this morning in meditation. So this is, I mean, it always knows, right? And it's just funny that we're ended up talking about this. Yeah. Anyways, answer. Yeah. Sorry. The question.
Yeah, that's okay. So how are you like helping people to get there in each of those stages?
Yeah, that's great. First of all, that's beautiful, Colleen. Thanks for sharing all of that. That felt a lot just like story time, you know?
Yeah.
There are so many ways. First of all, I think that what often happens, when we hear about gratitude and the power of gratitude is that we're encouraged almost to force gratitude, and no one can tell us what to be grateful for. So, when we hear things like, oh, you should be grateful for this. Well, no one can tell us what to be grateful for. That's our own personal, individual sense and feeling about it. And so I want to encourage us to really find the smallest things that we can to be grateful for and to focus there. And so I think so often when we hear about gratitude and, oh, we need to practice gratitude and gratitude's going to help, but we're just not feeling it because we're angry or we, just are not in that space, then it can feel very forced to try to come up with things that we're grateful for. But if we can break it down and bring it down to the absolute smallest thing and really put our focus there, then that's a perfect place to start, because there's nothing that says that you can't be thankful for the smallest thing, and to put your focus there and to say thanks for that, and to allow that little crack of gratitude to push the door open a little bit farther. And so I think that when it comes to our gratitude practice, we really need to honor and acknowledge what we are grateful for. Now, I know that for me personally, there are times, no matter how aligned you are, no matter how balanced your chakras are, no matter how much you practice Reiki, you're going to have times when
you are.
Yeah. You're going to have times when you're angry, you're upset, you're frustrated, you're overwhelmed. That's just a natural, normal human thing. And I know for me, when I get in those times, I will actually say to myself, okay, stop. You've got to turn this ship around. And I will say 10 things. And that to me is a trigger where I will stop and I will count off 10 things. And so I will raise my fingers and count off 10 things that I am grateful for. And by the time my 10th finger is raised, and by the way, that's a thing to be grateful for. I have 10 fingers. By the time my 10th finger is raised, I'm feeling a lot better than I did when I was feeling upset a few moments ago. And so gratitude is the kind of thing where it can actually help us to turn our emotional ship around right in the moment. And maybe it's not going to fix everything in the moment, but it sure is going to help to bring us into a different mindset in the moment when we do it. And it's as simple as 10 things right in the moment. Now, it doesn't mean that your anger is magically going to be gone, but the chances are pretty darn good that you're going to be feeling at least a little bit better than you did 10 fingers ago.
Well, and there's a ritual. Even though we think of the rituals being spiritual, that's a ritual.
Yes.
Remembering those rituals that you need as part, because ritual is one of your 7 steps.
Yes, Robyn. Yes.
Yeah. And gratitude's a frequency, so gratitude is frequency, anger is a frequency. And so even if you don't believe yourself when you're saying it, it's like that idea that there's it. I think it was Aunt Baldwin that was talking about how when you smile, that's connected to your vagus nerve. And so your vagus nerve, so actually, even if you're not feeling like smiling, when you smile, it can actually help with your nervous system. Ann Baldwin is, she does Reiki research. We had her on the podcast. She was talking about that. Anyway, so, but even like, if you're not feeling it when you start with that count, there is the idea that this frequency starts to, grow within you. You are able to receive it because it's a frequency that exists on the earth, and it also is within you. And then we can combine it with Reiki energy, but just, we're talking about it, that it's just like anger on the opposite side. It's like, if you allow yourself to go into the anger, you can continue to go further into the anger. You can find more things to be angry about. And so gratitude's the same. It's this frequency. It's just on the other end of the spectrum of it. And so I like that ritual because it's easy too. It's easy to just start. That's like, okay, I just have to put up 10 fingers. They can be small, but that can not only introduce me to remember that frequency, but we also have that neural pathway created of the what happens for us when we have that 10 finger ritual. It's like, then that it's easier to, forge along that path every time. It gets easier and easier and easier, as we know with neural pathways.
Yes, thank you, Robyn, for that. Yeah, I was just saying, thank you, Robyn, for that, and pointing out that is indeed itself a ritual that we can just do right in the moment. So thanks for that, Robyn.
And I know for myself, I remember one time, and I think this might have even been before Reiki. And I remember one time I was in gratitude practice, and it was a book that Oprah had been promoting on gratitude. And I was like, I am not feeling it. And I got to 3 things, and it was like, okay, I'll take the 3. And so it makes me think today too, one of the things we talk about in mind management is I actually have a list of things I would rather think about than a crummy mind. So, I mean, it's written down. If I need to change my mind on what I'm thinking about, I'm going to pick this or this or this or this subject. So it made me think, as you were talking about it, that if you're struggling with gratitude, like, it's okay. Because I remember the practice of writing the things about gratitude, and it felt like one more should. Okay, now I got to do my gratitude practice, and I'm not feeling it. So I'm wondering about even the idea of just writing those 10 things down, and it's okay to use those same 10 every time until you're feeling it.
Yeah, I love this recommendation, Colleen. I think that this is a great suggestion. Why wait until we're in that moment of feeling upset and angry to think of things? Let's write the things down and then have them at the ready to go during those moments when we're feeling out of alignment. I think that's absolutely awesome. So thank you for sharing that.
Well, thank you, because the way you were talking about it, it's like the light bulb moment goes off of like, oh, we could use that same tool to have it written down in advance. I mean, I'm in a place right now in my life where gratitude is very easy. I can find it quickly, but that can change. And we know when that changes, again, to have the tools that you need so that you can, shift into what you want to be and how you want your mind to be. And then, of course, what we know too is the Reiki energy actually helps us get there. It elevates and entrains us to those higher frequencies. So that's I don't know if we've ever really talked about gratitude on the podcast, like at this level. And I love the subject. So thank you so much for bringing that in and those tools in that you have. I know for myself, one of the things that, again, taking it to that smaller level, which is actually big, is noticing beauty is what takes me to gratitude. Like if you're looking at beauty, it naturally shifts into gratitude. So anyway, go ahead and keep talking. We don't mean to like overtake. It's like I say, I'm having this light bulb moment of, oh, let's write it down.
Yeah, I think that that's a great recommendation. And I love the idea too of leading with the beauty, because when we see beautiful things, it really is a very natural segue into, oh, how beautiful. Oh, I feel grateful that I get to see this. And so I think that's a lovely way to lead right in, Colleen. I think that's beautiful. You know, you had talked about, you know, you're at a point right now in your life where it's easy to find gratitude, but that might not always be the case. But I think that when we can cultivate a disposition of gratitude, then when we have those times in our lives where it's maybe a little harder for us to find gratitude, it's like a set point. You know, they say that there's like a happiness set point, and that, you know, whatever happens in your life, you're eventually going to return to that set point, whatever it is. And I think that we can cultivate not an attitude of gratitude, because attitudes come and go, but a disposition of gratitude. And so that means that when things knock us off, when we have challenges, we return to that set point with gratitude. And so if we can cultivate a disposition of gratitude, then when stuff happens, which it's going to, because that's life, we can more easily come back to that gratitude set point.
Yeah, that neural pathway is created. So when it's hard, you know how to traverse it.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, yeah, exactly.
I think too that is part of what spiritual practices, because the 7-way path is a spiritual, but also, you know, I would imagine it's also non-spiritual, if that's what calls to people, you know, however they get there, helps us to do right in the good times. Many of us turn to it or find it when we're in hard times. You know, it helps it's for some reason, that's what calls to us, and we find it through that. But then in the good times, we are continuing to expand and continuing to find these expansion points or set points, like you said, so that when we go through the hard times, we can have that remembering of it. So you can look at it from a slightly different perspective. You know, you might find the lessons of gratitude within it, or you might find the lessons of compassion within it, or you might find the lessons of love within it, and open to the ideas of what can I look for, what beauty, and not like physical beauty, although that too, but what beauty, what are these that can I find within this place that can help me to traverse it, can help me to get through it and back to that place where I know it is waiting for me, of that happiness or contentment, I think you said earlier.
Yes, beautiful. Thank you.
So you're using the 7-way path. We talked about it from when we're in challenging timeframes. Mm-hmm. Is that what it's mainly for, or is it for all kind of life transitions? You know, let's say you're going from having a career to retirement, which is a major transition, and it can be challenging, but it's not always it's challenging in its own way, but it's not necessarily hard, like, you know what I mean? A loss or grief or those kinds of things. Although I know those can be in it, but just the best example that I can use.
Yeah, and then that is an excellent example, Robyn, and an excellent question, because the truth is that when we think about changes and transitions, we often don't think about positive transitions and how they can also impact us and how they can throw us out of alignment or have us feeling off and uncentered or even angry and upset because when we experience a life change, we experience a range of emotions. And so when we do something like retire or start a Reiki business, and that is a positive, happy thing, we don't always realize or recognize that with any kind of life change, we're going to experience a range of emotions, including things like anger or frustration. And we could be going into this very positive experience like retirement or starting a Reiki business. And all of a sudden we feel angry, upset. What is going on? Why am I feeling this way? What's wrong with me? And the answer is you've gone through a life change. And so even something that is positive and happy in terms of life change, indeed is still a life change, which means that we're still going to have those unsettled feelings, still going to have a range of emotions, still going to feel in many ways off-centered and unbalanced, and needing to have strategies to help us align and move forward with intention and purpose. And so the 7-way path absolutely can help in all of those times for sure. And I know that I've used those 7 practices to help me through both challenging and positive life changes. Well, positive life changes can be challenging too.
Life challenge, yeah.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, sometimes those changes can also be disorienting. So, you go from one way of thinking to another way of thinking, and it can take a while to orient. And I like your term from dismemberment to remembering. So dismemberment is to unremember, and remembering is to remember. So can you talk about some of that and how those life changes and strategies, and I know for you, it led to creating your Reiki business, and then also creating a pathway for other people to learn how to create their Reiki business. And I know that's a big topic that our listeners are really interested in. So if you want to go into that whole subject, that'd be great.
Absolutely, Colleen. Thanks for that. When we have a life change with this idea of, dismembering and needing to remember, our identity is shaken during a life change, no matter what kind of life change it might be. And we're left feeling, well, who am I now? Let's say, for instance, that your kids graduate and they move off and move out and they're on their own now. Who am I now? Who am I? I'm not the mother who is taking care of the kids in the house anymore. Who am I, and how do I shift my identity? How do I remember myself, my sense of self, and how do I move forward from this experience? And so that remembering is really has to do with our identity, which is always called into question when we have a major life change, and a change including, and even, yes, especially starting a Reiki business. So when we start a Reiki business, we have to really think about our own selves and our own identity in a different way. Maybe we've been practicing Reiki for years. Maybe our identity as a Reiki practitioner is ingrained, but with a Reiki business comes a whole new set of responsibilities. And we've got to then shift our identity into one of being a Reiki business owner and all of the stuff that comes along with that. And so that can absolutely be a very bumpy transition where we're trying to figure out who we are now as a Reiki business owner, how to start this thing called a Reiki business and bring Reiki to the world and help people with Reiki, and moving forward with all of that. All of the questions that we have when we start a Reiki business, like what does it even mean to start a business, and how do I officially do that? How do I handle taxes and insurance? How do you even get insurance? And what kind of insurance do you even need for a Reiki business? And then I've got to like talk about my business and market it. So many questions that we really have to move into a new phase in our lives in so many ways when we start a Reiki business. And that sense of identity is really important with that shift.
Yeah, why you're doing what you're doing. What is the meaning of it for you? Because some other businesses, along with, you have the business practices, but with Reiki, it really does have to have the meaning as the foundation and service as a foundation. And then the business practices go with that. So I love that idea of the word identity to help you identify you. And then also, we talk about ideal client and identifying who are you doing this for? So yeah, great way to look at that.
It's like if you're going to start a restaurant, it's a lot. Not only is a path somewhat already been cut, right? Like it depends on what kind of restaurant. I know there's a lot of nuances there. So there's a lot to think about, but there is a path, right? That's already formed. And you don't have to also necessarily be doing work on yourself in the same time. I mean, you have to have an identity as a restaurant and stuff, but it's a deep level of, it's just such a deep difference. It's, and on top of it, Reiki is still relatively new. I mean, I know that we've been doing it for a long time, and there's some of us that have been doing it for a long time. And yes, we know we have people that like William that's been doing it for 30, 40 years and all of that. But at the same time, for many of us, especially in certain communities and like, rural communities, that kind of thing, it's relatively new, and you do have to carve a path for yourself. So it's not quite the traditional business, and it's not always accepted too. So that's the other piece of it. And then what comes with that, the work that comes with that, the self-work, that comes with that. So there's a lot of extra things to consider when you are starting a Reiki business in comparison to a traditional kind of, brick or mortar type business.
Yes, Robyn, thank you so much for bringing this up, because it really is a challenge that is unique in starting a Reiki business, is the fact that Reiki is really not so well known as lots of other things. I actually talk about this in an episode of the Build Your Reiki Business podcast. And I talk about if you're starting like a hot dog stand, for instance, you don't have to explain to people what hot dogs are. Everybody, well, if you're a US based hot dog stand, everybody knows what a hot dog is.
Right.
Yeah. Might not be able to explain what's in it, but everybody knows what a hot dog is. But when we start a Reiki business, it's already hard enough to start a business, period. No matter what kind of business, restaurant, hot dog stand. But now we have the added challenge of starting a business that Reiki, not everybody has heard of Reiki, and we have a lot of explaining to do. We have a lot of teaching to do. And so it's important for us to recognize that and honor that on our own Reiki business journey, because that's an added challenge that we have that other businesses like restaurants or hot dog stands don't have.
I would say that how to explain what I do is one of the number one questions that my students ask and people who are wanting to start a Reiki business. So how do you help people with that question?
Even 20 years down the line.
I'm still like, we're redoing our website right now, and we have to answer all these questions. It's like, okay, Now, how do I explain this? Because it's so experiential.
Yes, I think actually one of the things that maybe is not in that does a disservice to do is to, when people say, "Oh, what's Reiki?" to say something like, "Oh, you just have to feel it," because people aren't going to really get that. Like if I said to you, what's a punch in the face? And you said, "Oh, you just have to feel it." Well, it doesn't mean I want to feel it, right? But if we can have some language, some verbiage to be able to explain it, or at least enter into the conversation with someone, then we can help to normalize Reiki and help to get people comfortable with it. And so I do have a whole podcast episode about talking about Reiki. I think it's actually the one about the hot dog stand. And I have a whole lesson in the Build Your Reiki Business program about talking about Reiki, because the truth is that it is central to our Reiki business. And if we can't get comfortable talking about Reiki, then our Reiki business is not going to survive. Because we have to be comfortable talking about Reiki. It would be like if I was selling hot dogs, but I didn't want to talk about hot dogs, and I didn't want to have a conversation about hot dogs, then I'm always going to be challenged to, in essence, sell the hot dog and to be able to explain to people how the hot dog can help them and how much they're going to love it. And so we really have to get to a point of comfort with being able to talk about Reiki. And I actually advocate a couple of things. I advocate first starting with friends and family and people who you trust. So people who are going to love and support you no matter what kind of crazy thing you might say. And so starting with them and practicing with them. I advocate having a short little nutshell explanation of what Reiki is. And, that is whatever you feel called to use. It could be something as simple as, Reiki is a Japanese system to help us relax and fosters the body's own healing. And it's used in more than 500 hospitals across the US. That can be a simple, easy thing to say to someone when they say, "Oh, what do you do?" "Oh, I'm a Reiki practitioner." "Oh, what's that?" You've got that little blurb that you can offer to someone that just really allows you to open up the conversation. Not everyone is going to be interested in hearing, a whole big spiel about Reiki right away. But if they, "Oh, that's interesting. Oh, tell me more about that," then you can move on to getting more in depth, talking more about Reiki, talking about your own Reiki journey. So I actually advocate memorizing. Have a little spiel memorized that if someone asks you, you've got it ready to go. You know what you're going to say when someone asks you. And so when we know what we're going to say before we're already asked, we can feel more confident. And we're not worried about getting that question because we know what we're going to say and we are ready with an answer.
Your elevator pitch. It's a
yes.
Pretty basic, because I have a business degree and it's kind of like business 101. What is an elevator pitch? And here's how you make one and all of that. And the term elevator pitch comes from I know you know this, but for those that don't, comes from, it's what you can say about your business and the time it takes from an elevator ride. So that's where the basis of the term comes from. So yeah, elevator pitch.
Absolutely. That's exactly what it is, Robyn.
And this is a completely side note, but I would imagine, I haven't actually put this in, but I would imagine that Chat GPT would come up with a great elevator pitch. So if there's a long form version of what Reiki is that you really identify with or really connect to, or maybe you have a really long form version of what Reiki is that you just can't, put into 2 or 3 sentences, throw it into Chat and say, put this into an elevator pitch and see what comes out. Because now I'm like, "Ooh, I'll have to do that. I'm curious."
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And so this is a great way to just help us to feel more comfortable about just simply having those conversations in the first place. Also, anyone is always welcome to join the Reiki Business Collective. It's a Facebook group of Reiki business owners and those considering starting a Reiki business to practice talking about Reiki. So there's a place where you can come and just connect with other like-minded people and just practice talking about Reiki and see how it feels.
That's great. I love that. And the other thing is that one of the things that you said is not everybody's going to be interested in it. And the elevator pitch helps you in a kind of mainstream way to, just because people are going to ask, you put your toe in the water and people are going to be like, okay, bye. And then other people are going to be like, oh, tell me more.
Yes, exactly. And then when you have those people who say, tell me more, then, you can go into more of an explanation. And for this, I do recommend having some points that you would like to discuss so that you have that ready too, so that you give your elevator pitch and then someone says, tell me more. And you're, but to rather be ready with those talking points.
So real quick, how could people find the Reiki? It's called Build Your Reiki Business Collective. What is that group on Facebook so people can find it? And we'll put this on the show notes just so everybody knows.
Yeah, thanks, Robyn. It's the Reiki Business Collective. And it is at facebook.com/groups/Reiki Biz, B-I-Z.
Okay,
and
I'm writing this down real quick. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyone who has a Reiki business or is considering a practitioner, considering starting a Reiki business is welcome to join that group. We currently have, I believe, 1,200 members. And I started the Reiki Business Collective in 2021 because I just saw that there was not a specifically Facebook group for Reiki business discussions. And I knew that we needed a space to gather. And I don't advertise the group except on the podcast and in discussions like this. And people are just joining it every day. So it's definitely a great place to connect with other Reiki business owners and Reiki practitioners who are considering starting a Reiki business.
Well, I think I first saw you on Facebook and I saw that you were starting your podcast and the Reiki Business Podcast. Let me make sure I get that name correct. That it's a Reiki Business Podcast. Is that, Build Your Reiki Business Podcast. Get that correct. Because it's such a necessary topic. And I'm so glad that you are doing this and helping people with it. So,
well, thank you. Yeah.
Talk about your podcast a little bit and what that's all about.
Sure, Colleen. Thank you so much. Yeah, it's my honor to be able to offer that podcast every week because, I don't know about you, but when I started my Reiki business, and I know that when people start their Reiki businesses, they have lots of questions. And oftentimes we can really feel alone in that process, especially because Reiki is newer. And we really we might not know any other Reiki practitioners, especially if we live in a small town, and we might not know anybody else who has a Reiki business. Maybe we know our teachers, and maybe, they are really into the Reiki business thing, or maybe they just teach here and there. Or maybe we've lost touch with our teacher, and maybe the teacher doesn't really have a lot to share about Reiki business anyway. But whatever the case might be, I really noticed that there was a real need for this in our community. And I know that I really felt that myself as well when I was starting my own Reiki business, and recognizing that we really need the support. And so the Build Your Reiki Business podcast is a weekly podcast. The episodes are only about 20, 25 minutes long on one specific Reiki business topic. And so that topic might be something like talking about Reiki or insurance and, some ideas on how to choose insurance and the basics of Reiki business insurance. It might be a discussion about some aspect of mindset of Reiki business. There's one about failure in our Reiki business and one about fear and overcoming fears. So all kinds of Reiki business topics are addressed in that podcast in those short 20, 25-minute episodes every week that are available every Monday. And you can get there at standingstoneshealing.com/podcast.
And is it on most podcast platforms?
Yep. You can find it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts. It is there.
How about the topic of charging money?
Mm-hmm.
Aside from how do I share this? That's one of the next biggest questions is what do I charge and how do people move past their fear of charging money in their Reiki business?
Yes, thanks for that. And I will say that is actually all of those topics that I mentioned, including the idea of pricing and charging, is also part of the Build Your Reiki Business program. So I've got a podcast and a program, but I encourage people that when it comes to charging for Reiki, you'll hear things like, well, you're not charging for the Reiki, you're charging for your time. And you'll hear things like, we need to charge for Reiki in order to legitimize it. And to me, no matter what your opinions or beliefs are, I always come back to the fact that Reiki is not judging us for charging for Reiki. And Reiki is not judging our prices, whatever they might be. And Reiki is not judging us if we want to give Reiki away for free. And so, as a matter of fact, I do believe I have an episode on the podcast on talking about charging for Reiki, because I definitely talk about the idea that, if we have a food bank that gives away food, no one says to the food bank, you should not give away the food, because if you give away food, you're cheapening food. That's just simply not the case. We have gourmet restaurants where people go and enjoy a gourmet meal for a lot of money. And so I believe it's the same way with Reiki. If we feel like we should not charge for Reiki, then okay, you can give away all of your sessions for free. And if we want to charge $1,000 for a session, okay, Reiki's not judging that either. So I think it's important for us to not judge one another and what we might be charging in our own Reiki business, including if we feel that we should give all of our sessions away for free. I will also say that if we give all of our sessions away for free, we're eventually not going to have a Reiki business because, the business needs money for things like the website and the table and the office space. And, all of those things cost money. And sure, maybe we might want to trade time and sessions and crystals and, all other kinds of bartering services. But I don't think that my web host is going to accept crystals.
They should.
What's the matter?
That's their loss.
Right. So, on some level, if we want to have a Reiki business and we want it to operate and we want to be able to help more people with Reiki, then at some point we do need to charge for Reiki.
Well, I know for myself, I've always been self-employed and I was raised that way and just started that way in my 20s with different businesses. And when I first started practicing Reiki, I actually was specific that I didn't want to turn it into a business. But Reiki had a different plan for me. And so it became so compelling. But that transition, as you talk about changes and transition of not charging money to charging money, was very uncomfortable. And then realizing that my other business that was very successful, that I couldn't do both to the degree I wanted to do the Reiki. It became so compelling that I do it all the time, that I practice all the time, that I teach, that, I spend my life thoughts on Reiki, and because I'm not independently wealthy, unless I win that lottery or have won the lottery, that I'm not independently wealthy. And I can't do all the Reiki I want to do if it can't support me financially. And then going back to the understanding of, the history of Reiki and Usui Sensei, he immediately established a Reiki business. And when you look at his history, he talks about how he did charge money. Dr. Hayashi charged money. And then they also did a lot of it for free, which is true for all of us. So there's a lot of free resources, free Reiki support for people, because that's just what they need and who we are. So if people are concerned that they're not offering their services as a gift as well, I don't think it's possible to have a Reiki business and also not offer your services, because it's part of the energy. It's part of who we are as people. At the same time, it is what helps Reiki grow, because if people know, like what I discovered, one of my heart intentions at the very beginning of my practice at this time when I was trying to figure it all out, was that foundationally for me was that I would help Reiki become so mainstream that children would grow up with it as healthcare, as a style of healthcare, and also that they could grow up and say, I want to be a Reiki practitioner, and know that could support their family financially. And so it just naturally had to gravitate towards that. But I will tell you, in the transition of it and what I hear from people, that is one of the biggest challenges people have. Identifying how to speak about it and then what prices they charge.
Yes, absolutely, Colleen. And I think, your comments, I think really bring up a good point. And that is that even when we aren't in a session with a client, Reiki is still with us.
Yeah.
And so when I'm walking down the street, Reiki is still with me. When I'm at the grocery store, Reiki is still with me. And so I'm still bringing Reiki, but I'm not having a session. I'm not charging anyone. I'm not charging the old lady I talked to in the grocery store, even though Reiki is there. And so I think that as Reiki practitioners, when we're really in our practice, we have to acknowledge and recognize that Reiki is with us everywhere, anywhere outside of the session as well. And so let's say, for instance, I'm having a discussion with my friend who's going through a challenging time. Reiki is with me at that time. I'm not charging for that discussion. I'm not saying, oh, hey, you know what? Actually, this is like a kind of like a Reiki session right now. So really, you should be paying up. But Reiki is there. And so I think that if we can recognize and acknowledge that Reiki is with us all of the time, then it can maybe help us to kind of conceptualize this idea of charging in that, well, Reiki is with us all of the time and we're not charging all of the time.
Well, and even if you look at, you have a Facebook collective that is free for Reiki business, those are the kinds of things too that I think pretty well all Reiki practitioners have or do some version of some sort of resource for people.
And your podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Well, and what's interesting about these two topics, and also kind of tying it back to the uniqueness of a Reiki business, is that here we have a topic of how do we share Reiki, or maybe feeling shy about sharing it. And then also charging. And I love that you said that Reiki doesn't judge, because like, yeah, oh yeah, of course it doesn't, no matter what our calling is with it, it doesn't judge. It's pure love. But that we might have, if we are called to charge for it or have a business, that we might have money issues that we have to work through. And so here are two examples of having that spiritual aspect of a business that we have to do. You don't question charging if you've got a restaurant. You don't question charging for the food, just as you don't question paying for the suppliers, right?
It's just hot dog.
Yeah, hot dog. Sorry. Yeah, there you go. Hot dog. You don't question those two things, and you don't think, oh, should I be giving my hot dogs away for free if I'm not the example of a food bank, if I am the example of a hot dog stand? Like, you don't have to question that. But in these situations, we have this business where we also have to do the spiritual work on ourselves. Okay, I have a problem with sharing. Do I need to heal religious wounding? Do I need to heal past life trauma that caused me to have this fear of sharing this healing modality? If I have money issues, what culturally created part of myself do I have to heal or, empower? All of these places where we also do work on ourselves, or listen for places where we need to heal and also empower within ourselves, because that's a part of the Reiki energy as well. And so that uniqueness of having a spiritual practice, having a Reiki business, that we are also always navigating, and not in a bad way. It's also great. It's good. It's also fun. It's part of some of the depth of why we're so called to it as well. But it is an additional layer to it.
Absolutely, Robyn. Thanks for bringing that up. It is true that work is never done, and that it is always ongoing. And so even once we get to a point of feeling okay with charging, our relationship with money is an ever evolving and unfolding kind of experience. And as you mentioned, the healing that needs to happen, past life, ancestral, whatever it might be, is so multi-layered that it really is the kind of thing that is just always unfolding and developing and ever changing. And so I think just simply being open to that and gentle with ourselves during that process is really important. And as you mentioned, Colleen, before, with that journey of working on releasing judgment, I think Reiki helps us to do that, and that we really need to work to release judgment of ourselves for any money challenges that we might have, because we all have them. And even if we're all good with money, no problem, there will come challenges and the need for exploration and reflection. And truly, it is an ongoing process.
Well, one of the other areas, along with what Robyn's talking about, where we have our personal work to do with a business that you might not have it in another one, is I'm going to lump them together. Marketing and social media. So how do you talk? And, I want you to go ahead and tie it into your program with the Build Your Reiki Business program. How are you tying those together too? Because I love that kind of twist with it, Robyn, that I hadn't thought about that. Yeah, we have to work on that stuff on ourselves just to get through. Okay, I'll do social media. All right, what is marketing? What do I have to say? What? So go ahead and share about what you do with that.
Yeah, thank you, Colleen. Module 6 of the Build Your Reiki Business program is all about marketing. So it's a whole module all kinds of videos on both in-person and online marketing, including social media. Because, whatever kind of Reiki business you might have, whether it's strictly in person, whether it's a hybrid business or strictly distance, strictly online, or even if your Reiki business doesn't even offer sessions and just does products, whatever it might be, we need to be marketing our business. And this is something that is often so very challenging for not just new Reiki business owners, but even, established Reiki business
20
owners.
years later.
Yes. I really encourage, and I talk about this in the program, but I really encourage kind of changing our mindset around what marketing really means and what it is. So that marketing isn't really about selling. It's not really about marketing. It's about connecting, and it's about educating. And so I encourage working on that mindset and kind of changing it to where we're not viewing marketing as this icky, yucky thing where we're trying to get people to buy stuff. It's about helping people to connect with us, connect with our business, and connect with things that might help them, including Reiki or whatever else we might have to offer the world. And so this as well is an ongoing process. Along with it comes the idea of visibility and the idea of putting ourselves out there. We're afraid of rejection. We're afraid to get the nasty comments on our posts, or maybe even worse, we're afraid that no one's going to even like it. No one's going to notice it. And I really encourage us in the program to come to really accept that failure is a natural and normal part of the Reiki business process, and the natural, normal part of any kind of business, where we're going to put ourselves out there and no one's going to notice our post. No one's going to like it. We're going to offer a workshop and we're going to have 2 people or maybe even 0 people sign up for it. We're going to create a new program and we're going to have a hard time figuring out how to talk about it. That's all natural and normal. And that as well is an ongoing journey. And I think when we can open ourselves up to that journey and to see it as an experiment, then it's not so much about, this hard thing to do. It's about, I'm going to try this. We're going to see what the result is. I'm going to try this. We're going to see how this goes. Oh, no one signed up for that workshop. Okay, maybe I won't do that again. Or maybe I will, but I'll try something a little different. And if we can bring this idea of experimentation and even play to it, then I think it helps us to come to a new place in terms of the mindset, which, Robyn, you mentioned a little bit earlier about this idea of mindset. That's really what's at the core of all of it. That's actually a whole part of the Build Your Reiki Business program too, is mindset, because mindset is just so important, including changing the way that we traditionally have thought about marketing and what it means to market.
And then another big one is time. So how the time management, the time it takes, time to do scheduling, marketing. I just had someone talk to me this morning about starting a business. And I said, I could help you identify some of the structure that might be helpful. And she immediately said, oh no, I don't do structure. And I thought, kind of, that's makes that hard a year from now.
It's a thing.
I'm trying to say.
When it comes to business, it's a thing.
It's a thing. So
at the same time, releasing judgment if that's what works for people.
I don't mean it to be judgmental.
No, I know you don't.
I'm actually asking a question like, okay, it's an awareness of like time and structure and, scheduling and like it was even not too long ago. Now, Robyn and I have been working together for 8 years, 9 years, something like that, on this Reiki lifestyle business. And one day we went, now we have team meetings with all of our different people that work with us, but it was like, oh, we need to meet just the two of us. I was like, well, duh, how did we miss that part? So can you talk about that part of it, time?
Yeah, thanks, Colleen. And I will tell you that I am a team of one, and I have meetings with myself because I think it's important for us to have some time, set some time aside where we're really looking at the business and all of its components and considering them, reflecting on them, and planning and doing all of the things that you might typically do in a meeting. But when it comes to this idea of structure, maybe we as the Reiki business owner want to be free flowing and just let Reiki guide us and do its thing. And that's all okay. But clients expect structure. Clients want structure. And so structure is something as simple as what happens in your sessions. We meet, we have a chat, fill out an intake form, do the session, close up, that's structure. And so someone who says, I don't like structure, I encourage them to actually take a real look at their lives and see where there is structure, because my guess is there's probably structure. For instance, if they have a house, there's probably a door on that house. That's structure to the structure, right? And so structure actually is there in all kinds of small ways that we might not recognize. And so it might not be so much that there's a fear of structure as it's a fear of being hemmed in and not being able to be creative or free flowing or allow things to come. But we can do both. They're not mutually exclusive, because guaranteed your clients are going to want structure. They're going to want to have a structured way of contacting you, not on your website. You just say, I don't know, figure out how to connect with me, throw out a carrier pigeon or put a little sailboat in the ocean or whatever, just figure it out. You'll reach me somehow if it's meant to be. That's a lack of structure, but not very helpful for our business. Or if, there's someone who wants to schedule with you, is there an easy set way to schedule with you? That's structure. Or if you offer a single price, you say, all right, it's this much for a session, rather than pay whatever you want, or on Tuesdays, it's this much, and on Thursdays, it's this much. That lack of structure is going to turn a client off, because clients want and expect structure. As a matter of fact, people like predictability. They like structure. And so what that means is that for our Reiki business, we can have both. They're not mutually exclusive. So we can set structure and expectation while at the same time allowing for creativity and things to just happen and making space for us to be inspired and to be able to do new and different things in our business. There's enough room for all of that. And so my encouragement to that person would be, it sounds to me like in terms of time management, creativity and going with the flow is a priority to you. And so I would probably recommend setting aside some structured time in your business where you can allow your mind to wander and be creative, and setting aside some time in your week, your month, whatever it might be, your schedule. Maybe don't book clients on specific days, and you can just do whatever on those days and be creative and free flowing so that you can have structure in order to help your business stay a business and to help your clients know what to expect. And you can still have that free flowing kind of creative experience that it's obvious is important to you.
I agree so much with that. I feel like once I set structure instead of, what works for you, that is actually what gave me more freedom, because it did free up my mind from having to do all of the admin things of not having structure to be able to then, okay, so now I don't have to worry about all of that. I don't have to think about, oh, I have to look in my schedule. And Colleen, this is something that you suggest too, that I think it's so helpful. I don't have to look into my schedule and figure out when do I have open, figure out these when it is. And, oh, does that work for you? Nope, here's what I have. And then that just gives me so much more freedom otherwise. And if that's uncomfortable to you, then maybe look at the business opportunities in a different fashion now that we have so many different ideas that maybe, okay, so maybe you don't want to see clients. Yep. So then how does your business support you that you're not seeing clients? Maybe it's like you have a membership or online classes or a podcast, some sort of thing that pays you in different ways that maybe that is more of a fit for you, that you don't have to, there's still going to be some structure, but that it gets to be on your own structured time rather than other people's structured time. But I think it's so important that little bit of structured time is what actually gives you more freedom otherwise in the non-structured time.
Yes, such a great point. And also, Robyn, a great point about the Reiki business model. Reiki is infinite. And so our Reiki business doesn't have to look like the typical, I'm going into an office setting, I'm seeing clients there for Reiki sessions. Our Reiki business doesn't have to look like that. We don't have to limit it. And so absolutely, we can have any kind of Reiki business model.
Well, I remember, speaking of that Laurel Gaia was my mentor along with William Rand. And I remember her talking about scheduling my classes for the next 8 months. And man, that was talk about resistance. It's like, really? I have to know what my schedule is 8 months from now? And the same thing with scheduling my session hours. And like, really, I have to know what those are that far out in advance, and feeling so uncomfortable with it, and then doing it. And like Robyn was just saying, it actually brought freedom. And the way you were talking about it is how much of this is on behalf of client comfort. And it is one of the things I talk about in Reiki business practices, is the more we operate in normal 21st century business practices, the easier it is, because everyone knows how it works. They know that if, speaking of money and all of these things, that if they're going to schedule a session, there will be an appointment for it. It will last a certain amount of time. It will cost a certain amount of money. And these services are going to be exchanged in that session. The same with a class, the same with everything. And it's just how it works. So that it's normal. It's, and we can do that differently. But I have found the same with developing policies, that maybe you suddenly have to realize, oh, I need a policy around this. And so the more that those are just like normal business policies, it's almost like how you started at the beginning of, these are things we don't have to explain because they're already how things work. So it's one less thing to have to explain, along with what is Reiki and what are my services and all of that communication part.
Yes, absolutely, Colleen. I agree 1000%. I think the more that we can communicate to clients what to expect, then the better it is for them. That we can remove the questions that they might have about what's going to happen and what to expect, then we are just making the process that much more friendly and easy and accommodating for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and talk about, the one thing we haven't talked about that I know you do is card reading.
Oh, wait, I want to hear real quick before we switch topics.
Okay.
I actually want to hear about what's in your Build Your Reiki Business program. So you said you have modules. So can you just explain a little bit about that?
Is that in person, or is it like an evergreen online course, or?
Thank you so much. Yeah, thanks for that, Robyn and Colleen. Yes, currently, Build Your Reiki Business program is an evergreen, self-paced program. Now, it might look different in the future. It might in the future be a live program. But right now, it is self-paced and evergreen with support built into the program. So discussion forums built into the program. In the future, there will be group coaching as well. But the program is 6 modules and 3 bonuses on all kinds of Reiki business topics. So module 1 is all about defining exactly what a Reiki business is. And just like we were talking, you know, I established that module to help us really expand our notion about what a Reiki business is, and to not limit it, because Reiki is not limiting us. And so we don't need to limit ourselves to that traditional in-person seeing clients kind of model. So that's module number 1, just really talking about all of the possibilities and helping you define your Reiki business for yourself. So what that means to you and what you would like your Reiki business to look like. Module number 2 is all about values, vision, mission, and mindset. And so all kinds of discussion about basing your Reiki business on values. You know, we were talking about values earlier and how important they are, including during a life change. But it's really important for us to be reflecting on our values as we decide on what we might like our Reiki business to look like, at least at first, because it's an ever-evolving journey, right?
You're right.
Yeah, but I really advocate really knowing what our values are so that we're not creating or starting a Reiki business that is really at odds with those core values, because we're setting ourselves up to fail if that's the case. I help you to create a mission statement for your Reiki business, a vision for your Reiki business, and really do a lot of work on that mindset component and helping us to really work on our Reiki business mindset, which is very important. Module number 3. Now, this program is really geared towards US-based Reiki businesses, because I'm not going to pretend to have any idea to know about creating a business in another country. Now, if you want to create a business in another country, this program would still help you, yes. But certain things like module number 3 are not going to be as relevant, because in this module, it's all about business formation. So the differences between a DBA and an LLC, what a sole proprietorship is, how you create an LLC, what that process is. So it really walks you through all of the steps to help you determine what kind of formal Reiki business you might want to file, if you want to in the first place. All of the pros and cons are there for anyone so that they have full knowledge of all of that confusing business stuff. You know, before I had my Reiki business, I never had a business before. I actually never dreamed that I would have a business. This wasn't anything that I ever thought that I would do. And so I had no clue what it even meant to start or file a business. And so module number 3 answers all of those confusing questions. Module number 4 is all about money. So helping you to separate your business and personal finances and why that's important, helping you to set up that business bank account, showing you how to get an EIN, how to do all kinds of money things, including creating a very easy to follow budget. I give you a template for it that you can just plug your own stuff in there. Very easy to start with. I even actually show you how to do taxes. Now, I'm not a tax preparer. I'm not an accountant. I'm not a bookkeeper, but I do absolutely understand taxes. And I think it's important for Reiki business owners, even if they do have their own accountant, tax preparer, bookkeeper, to understand how it works, especially when it comes to business expenses. Trust me, your accountant will love you after you take the Build Your Reiki Business program. You're going to know exactly how to write off a business expense, what that means, and including, I show you how to write off the Build Your Reiki Business program as a business expense too. Module number 5 is all about client relations. So everything from intake forms. Do you need an intake form? What goes on an intake form? Why do you put those things on the intake form? If you've got an intake form, the things you really want to have on them. Insurance, how to shop for insurance, the different kinds of insurance, the differences between the different kinds of business insurance, claims made versus occurrence-based insurance. All of those questions to help you pick the right Reiki business insurance for your Reiki business, including very common Reiki business insurers that you might want to check out. Also in that module is a discussion about scheduling, how to set up scheduling if you do have clients or students, and how to get that process moving, as well as how to set up your payment processors. So the differences between Stripe and Square, PayPal, which is maybe a good fit for you, how to accept payments, and how to get that all set up. And then module number 6 is all about marketing. So in-person marketing, online marketing, social media. I had a social media audit done on my own social media by the University of Pittsburgh. And they shared with me lots of behind the scenes secrets that I share with all of my Build Your Reiki Business program students. So you get all of the secrets that they shared with me at the University of Pittsburgh. And also included with that, I give you some processes too that you're welcome to take and use for your own use in your Reiki business. Email too, I talk about as well, because that's a big question that a lot of people have. And then those 3 bonuses. And the first bonus is a website walkthrough, where I actually walk you through my own website and explain what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and the reasoning behind it in terms of current website kinds of practices. The second bonus is be a content boss. So, we always have questions about what do I post? What do I create? And what do I put out there? And so in the Be a Content Boss workshop, I explain the content hierarchy, the most important kinds of content to get people to know and like and trust you, and to get an idea of how you can help them, and then what to do with that content once you create it. And then the third bonus is social media secrets. So more social media stuff, including some behind the scenes things that I know as a Facebook group administrator as well. So lots of stuff all in that program, even more than I mentioned. It is the most comprehensive Reiki business program available anywhere. I'm very excited and honored to be able to offer it.
Yeah, that's a wealth of knowledge. It's very, like you said, very comprehensive.
Yes, thank you. And it's self-paced because there is a lot of content. It's 23 hours of content. And so we all build our own Reiki business at our own pace. Yeah. And so there's, you have it for lifetime access to be able to work through it in your Reiki business. Especially
if you're supporting yourself in another business and setting your business up slowly, and you only have so much time. So love that.
Yes.
Great.
Excellent. And people find that on your website,
You can go to standingstoneshealing.com/build, and you can learn all about the Build Your Reiki Business program.
Fantastic. All right, Colleen, you had another.
Okay, so tell us about your card reading.
Yes, I've actually been card reading for longer than I've been a Reiki practitioner. I've been card reading since 2012, and I actually started reading cards just for myself. And interestingly enough, when I started my Reiki business, I was not card reading. I started my Reiki business for Reiki, and card reading ended up being a part of the business after Reiki. So I started because of Reiki. But because I was a card reader first, it was just very natural and normal for me to add card reading into my Reiki sessions. And so at the end of a session, I would, if the client was so interested, pull a card for them. And I never had anyone say no. I've never had anyone say no, thanks. Everyone always wanted a card at the end of the session. And so that's how I got started with in my business card reading, and then just started offering readings and teach card reading now as well with the Unlock Your Card Magic program.
And what kind of cards are you using?
Yes, thanks. So I actually, in my readings, I use 5 different decks. So I'll use a combination: tarot, oracle cards, Viking runes, and I also read Scrabble tiles too. So I do Scrabble readings as well. But I'll mix those all together. I actually have a monthly card reading on my YouTube channel, on the Standing Stones Healing YouTube channel. So every month you choose number 1, 2, or 3, and there's a corresponding 5 card reading for the month. So it's a lot of fun. You can choose your own adventure with those monthly card readings.
Well, I want to go to that.
I know. I didn't know there was Scrabble tile readings. That's cool.
I do. Now, I don't offer those very often online, but I do in person.
Yeah, I just hadn't heard of it. That's fun.
Yeah. I'm the first and only person I know of who reads Scrabble tiles.
Well, there we go. That's why. Okay.
Well, it would be very similar to runes. And they're all divination tools. So it would still be just another way of doing divination. That is so fun. Oh, I can't wait to go check it out on YouTube and see your card readings.
Thank you.
Yeah, that'll be really fun. And you offer that also as one of your services?
Yeah, actually, I primarily now do my card readings in person. I offer card readings online on over Zoom on special occasions. I used to do them as a standalone service, but what I've done in my Reiki business now, remember, it's of course an unfolding, ever evolving journey, is that I've taken all of my offerings, Reiki, card reading, and coaching, and brought them all together into one service, Reiki Card Coaching. Now, I will still offer online Reiki sessions themselves, distant sessions, as a standalone, as well as card readings as a standalone. And I do coaching as well, particularly business coaching. But I've taken all of those and put them into one main service that is an always available service on my website.
Okay. And are you mostly in person?
I have a hybrid business. Okay. So I do both in person and online. So my in-person business looks like mobile sessions with Reiki sessions and card readings. It looks like expos. It looks like fairs and festivals and speaking engagements and workshops. And then the online component of my Reiki business is all of those things I just mentioned: Unlock Your Card Magic, Build Your Reiki Business, the Reiki Card Coaching, the coaching, sometimes card reading specials, sometimes distance Reiki specials, all thrown into the mix.
So definitely Reiki business your way.
Yes.
Which is actually such a component of having a Reiki business, is it really needs to be, each person's way. Yes. And so I love the way you're describing that and kind of describing all these components. It sounds like it gives each person, or the modules give people the time to investigate the concepts, work with it, and then and then maybe move to the next one. And so talk about your Facebook collective page and what that's about. And anybody can join that.
Yes. So the Reiki Business Collective is a space where Reiki business owners can come and talk about Reiki business topics. And we get all kinds of questions in the group, questions about, what kind of insurance do you use? Who's your insurer? Or, hey, I'm thinking about getting a new table. What do you recommend? Or, gosh, I had this challenge with a client today. Has anyone else ever had this experience? And so it's just a place to get support, to have the encouragement of like-minded people. And if you're just starting out in your Reiki business, it's also a great way to really get an idea of what it's all about and if it's something that you are interested in pursuing for yourself.
Fantastic. Well, my gosh, Christian, thank you so much. What a wealth of information that you've brought today, and great conversation.
And in general,
in
business
general,
and your students and your clients and just the Reiki world in general.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm honored. It truly is an honor to be a part of our Reiki community, which is, I don't have to tell you, incredible. We have amazing people in the Reiki community, amazing people like yourselves, and all of the things that you have done over the years for the Reiki community. And so I want to honor and acknowledge the two of you and say thank you so much for all of your contributions to our beautiful, vibrant community. So thank you.
Oh, thank you. You're welcome. And, it's one of the things that I love about the Reiki community is we really do support one another. And, we are working in different lineages. We have different ways of doing things. And I just love that. I mean, I just don't run into competition or, kind of any of the normal, what you see in a lot of different communities. It's just supportive and loving and helpful and very global and community-based.
Many right ways.
Yeah, many right ways. Yeah. Well, again, Christian is at standingstoneshealing.com. So you can go to his website, also finding his podcast, Build Your Reiki Business podcast, and all of everything is on his website. And then also social media is all under Standing Stones Healing as well. So, and then Robyn and I were all Reiki Lifestyle. So you guys know that by now. Thank you, Christian, so much. What an honor and really fun talking with you today. And just many blessings to you and all the people who are listening and can be really helped by the things that you talked about. And, even if they're not subscribing, say, for instance, to your 7-way path, just the way you talked about it gives people ideas on how to start for themselves with gratitude and journaling and walking and ritual and, all the different things that you mentioned, because we all go through changes, whether they're small and, a short change or whether they're the big life changes and transitions. I think the things that you mentioned are those 7 ways are beneficial for all the different ways of navigating life.
Yes, thank you so much.
And of course, it's so great that we have Reiki. So, all right. Well, thank you. And for all of you listening, thank you so much. And many blessings to all. And feel free to email Christian, email us with questions that you may have or anything. All right. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye now.